I spent 6 months interviewing for a life-changing director position, only to have the offer rescinded 48 hours before my start date due to anonymous tips about a criminal history I didn't have. When I discovered my sister, Claire, was behind the smear campaign to teach me humility, I decided to teach her a permanent lesson in consequences. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss the fallout of this betrayal. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The notification sound on my phone usually triggered a Pavlovian response of excitement. For the last 3 weeks, every ping had been a potential update from HR, a congratulatory text from a former colleague, or a confirmation of the onboarding schedule for what was supposed to be the biggest leap in my career. I was standing in the middle of my living room, surrounded by half-packed cardboard boxes. My apartment, usually a curated sanctuary of beige and cream, was in chaos. I was moving to a high-rise downtown, a perk afforded by the significant signing bonus of my new role as Senior Director of Operations at Vanguard Logistics. I had the celebratory bottle of champagne chilling in the fridge. I had the new tailored navy suit hanging on the back of the bedroom door, the plastic dry cleaning wrap still draped over the shoulders like a cape. I picked up the phone, expecting a reminder about the Monday morning orientation. It was an email. The subject line was stark, devoid of the usual corporate warmth I had grown used to during the recruitment process. Urgent regarding your offer of employment. My thumb hovered over the screen. A cold, prickling sensation started at the base of my neck. In the corporate world, urgent combined with that kind of subject line never meant anything good. But surely it was just a paperwork error. Maybe a missing tax form. I tapped the screen. Dear Abigail, we regret to inform you that effective immediately, Vanguard Logistics is rescinding the offer of employment extended to you on the 14th of this month. Based on new information brought to the attention of our Human Resources Department regarding your background and professional integrity, we cannot proceed with your onboarding. We take matters of criminal conduct and financial misappropriation very seriously. Please do not report to the office on Monday. Your badge access has been preemptively revoked. Regards, Human Resources. The air left the room. I read the words again. Criminal conduct, financial misappropriation. My knees gave out. I didn't swoon or faint like in the movies. I just sank, physically heavy, until I was sitting on the hardwood floor next to a box labeled Desk Supplies. The phone shook in my hand. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred into nonsensical black lines. I had never stolen a penny in my life. I had never been arrested. I didn't even have a speeding ticket on my record. My entire career, 7 years of 60-hour weeks, missed birthdays, skipped holidays, and relentless grinding, was built on a reputation for absolute, bulletproof competence and honesty. I dialed the hiring manager, David. He had taken me to lunch 3 days ago. We had laughed about his kids' soccer league. It went straight to voicemail. I dialed the HR representative, a woman who had excitedly walked me through the benefits package just yesterday. Straight to voicemail. I called the main line and asked to be transferred. The receptionist, sounding confused, put me on hold. 5 minutes of tinny elevator music played, a cheerful, upbeat tune that felt like a mockery of the catastrophe unfolding in my chest. Then the line clicked. This is legal. A cold, unfamiliar voice. Hello, this is Abigail. I just received an email that... Ms. Abigail, the voice cut me off, sharp and final. We have been advised to cease all communication with you immediately. If you attempt to enter the premises, security will be notified. Any further inquiries should be directed to our legal department in writing. But I haven't done anything. I screamed, my voice cracking, the desperation clawing its way out of my throat. What information? Who said I did something? This is a mistake. There is no mistake in our vetting of the credible evidence provided. Goodbye. The line went dead. I sat there in the silence of my half-packed apartment. The champagne was still chilling. The suit was still hanging. But my future, the one I had clawed my way toward inch by inch, had just been incinerated. The betrayal wasn't just that I had lost the job, it was the accusation. Someone hadn't just taken my opportunity, they had taken my name. And the worst part? The sting of it felt sharper, deeper, and more personal than a stranger's sabotage. It felt like a knife, twisting in a wound I didn't know I had. The next 40 HT hours were a blur of nausea and panic. I didn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I spent the time pacing my apartment, obsessively refreshing my email, hoping for a retraction, an apology something. I requested my own background check from 3 different services. All of them came back clean, pristine. I sat at my kitchen table, papers sprawled everywhere. If the background checks were clean, then the information Vanguard received wasn't from a database. It was external. It was a tip. Credible evidence provided, the lawyer had said. Who hated me enough to do this? My mind raced through old colleagues, ex-boyfriends, rivals from college, but none of them fit. I kept to myself. I was professional. I didn't make enemies, I just did the work. By Sunday afternoon, the silence in my apartment was deafening. I needed to hear a human voice. I needed my family. I called my mother, Margaret. "Mom," I choked out as soon as she answered. "I lost the job. They rescinded the offer." "Oh, Abigail," she sighed, but her tone wasn't shocked. It was resigned, almost tired. "Well, these things happen. You were probably pushing too hard, honey. You know how you get, obsessive." Obsessive? I gripped the phone tighter. "Mom, they accused me of criminal conduct. Someone lied to them. I need to figure out who." "Maybe it's a sign," she said, her voice drifting into that vague, spiritual tone she used whenever she didn't want to deal with a problem. "Maybe the universe is telling you to slow down, to be more humble, like your sister." My stomach turned. This isn't about humility. This is slander. I'm going to lose the apartment. I'm going to lose everything if I can't fix this reputation damage. "Don't be so dramatic," Margaret snapped, her patience evaporating. "You always make everything about money and status. Claire and Jaden are coming over for dinner tonight. Why don't you come? Stop obsessing over the job. It's gone. Focus on family." I hung up, feeling colder than before. Focus on family. I drove to my parents' house that evening, mostly because I couldn't stand the sight of the packing boxes anymore. My sister, Claire, was already there, sitting at the kitchen island with a glass of red wine. She looked, as always, effortlessly put together, a pastoral vision in a soft linen dress, her hair in perfect, loose waves. Jaden, her husband, was in the living room watching football. He gave me a nod but didn't get up. "I heard the news," Claire said as I walked in. She didn't stand up to hug me. She just took a sip of wine, her eyes scanning my face with an unreadable expression. "Rough break, Abby." "It's not a break, Claire, it's a crime. Someone sent fake evidence to HR. I poured myself a glass of water, my hands shaking. "Well," Claire said, tilting her head. "Maybe they saw something they didn't like. You have been posting a lot about it on LinkedIn. A bit. Boastful, don't you think?" I stared at her. I was sharing my career milestone. That's what LinkedIn is for. "It comes off as arrogant," Claire said softly, smoothing the tablecloth. "Not everyone has your luck. It can make people resentful. Maybe someone just wanted to take you down a peg. Teach you that you aren't better than everyone else just because you have a fancy title." Something in her tone made the hair on my arms stand up. It was too specific. Take you down a peg. "I never said I was better," I whispered. "You don't have to say it, Abby. You live it. The car, the clothes, the high-rise." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Maybe this is a blessing. Now you can learn what it's like for normal people. You know, struggle a little. It builds character." She turned back to her wine, dismissing me. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't just see my older sister. I saw the tightness in her jaw, the gleam of satisfaction she was trying to hide behind her wine glass. I excused myself to the bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face, looking at my pale reflection in the mirror. My mother thought it was the universe. Claire thought it was a lesson in humility. But as I dried my hands, I remembered something. Claire had asked me for a loan 2 months ago, $5,000 for a business venture, a pyramid scheme selling essential oils she was convinced would make her rich. I had said no. I had told her I was saving for the move. She had stormed out, screaming that I was selfish, that I thought I was too good to help family. I looked at the door. They thought I was defeated. They thought I was just going to cry and move back home and learn my lesson. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. I wasn't just an arrogant corporate sellout. I was a senior director of operations. My entire job was forensic analysis of data trails, identifying bottlenecks and tracing errors to their source. If someone had fabricated evidence against me, they had left a digital footprint, and I was going to find it. To understand why this betrayal shattered me, you have to understand the dynamic of my family. For as long as I can remember, I was the resource, the fixer, the bank. My father died when I was 20, and since then, I had carried the weight of our family's stability. I paid off my mother's mortgage. I paid for Claire's wedding to Jaden when they accidentally overspent their budget by 10 grand. I funded the down payment on their minivan when their third child was born. I did it because I loved them. I did it because I felt guilty for my success. Claire, on the other hand, was the heart of the family. She was the golden child. She didn't have a career. She had passions. She volunteered at the church. She ran the PTA. She posted long, rambling captions on Instagram about the beauty of a simple life and the importance of faith and family values. But behind the scenes, Claire was a bottomless pit of need. She resented my career, yet she felt entitled to the fruits of it. If I bought a new purse, she would make a snide comment about materialism and then ask if she could borrow it, only to never return it. If I went on a vacation, she would sigh about how nice it must be to have no responsibilities, ignoring the fact that she had never held a full-time job in her life. Jaden was no better. He was an insurance agent who spent more time on fantasy football than finding clients. He enabled Claire's delusions, nodding along whenever she ranted about how unfair the world was to them. Sitting at dinner that night, watching Claire eat her roast chicken with delicate, precise bites, I felt the veil lift. "So, what will you do now?" Margaret asked, piling more potatoes onto Jaden's plate. "You can't afford that apartment anymore, surely." "I have savings," I said quietly. "Savings go fast," Jaden chimed in, speaking with his mouth full. "Market's tough right now, might be hard to find another gig with. You know, a red flag on your file." "It's not a red flag," I said, my voice hardening. "It's a lie, and I'm going to prove it." Claire set her fork down. The metal clinked loudly against the china. "Why can't you just let it go?" she asked, her voice dripping with faux concern. "Why do you always have to fight? Maybe you did do something, Abby. Maybe you don't even realize it. You're so cutthroat. Maybe you stepped on someone and this is karma." "Karma isn't sending fake criminal records to an HR department, Claire. That's fraud. That's libel." "Well," Claire shrugged, picking up her wine again, "it sounds like you need a lawyer, but lawyers are expensive. And since you're unemployed—" She let the sentence hang in the air, a small, cruel smile playing on her lips. "Maybe you should just apologize to whoever you hurt and move on. Learn some humility." There was that word again, humility. She looked at me with those wide, innocent eyes, the same eyes she used to charm our parents, the neighbors, the church group. She looked perfect. She looked kind. But I saw the shark swimming beneath the surface. She wasn't worried about me. She was happy. She was delighted that I had been knocked down. She was relishing the idea of me losing the apartment, losing the status, and coming back to them, hat in hand, needing their help for once. She wanted me to be small. She wanted me to be manageable. I looked at Jaden, wiping grease off his chin. I looked at Margaret, fussing over the gravy boat, willfully blind to the venom in Claire's voice. I stood up. I'm not hungry, I said. Sit down, Abigail, Margaret scolded. Don't be rude. I have to go, I said, grabbing my purse. I have a lot of work to do. Work, Claire laughed, a light tinkling sound. You don't have a job, remember. I have a project, I said, meeting her gaze dead on. And I always finish my projects. As I walked out the door, I heard Claire murmur to our mother, "See? So dramatic, she just can't handle failure." I got into my car, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to the one person I knew could help me navigate the darker side of corporate warfare. My ex-boyfriend, Mark, he was a cybersecurity consultant. We hadn't spoken in 2 years, not since I prioritized a merger over our anniversary, but he was the best in the business. I sat in the car outside his building, staring at my phone. I was about to call in a favor I didn't have, to solve a crime I couldn't prove, committed by a sister I thought I knew. Claire wanted me to learn humility. Fine. But she was about to learn that you don't poke a bear, especially not one that knows how to hunt. Mark looked different than I remembered. He had a beard now and he looked tired, but his eyes still held that sharp, analytical gleam. He met me at a 24-hour diner near his apartment. I had texted him a simple SOS, "I'm in trouble, professional hit, need eyes." He listened without interrue. Ting as I laid it out, the rescinded offer, the accusations of embezzlement and drug use, the timing. "And you think it's your sister?" he asked, swirling the black coffee in his mug. "She used the word humility 3 times in one conversation," I said, my voice low. "She knew details about the offer she shouldn't have known, like the exact timeline. I never told her when the background check cleared, only when I started. But the email from HR mentioned new information arriving just after the check." Mark nodded slowly. "If it was an external tip, it likely came via email. Anonymous, probably a burner account, Proton Mail or something similar." "Can you trace it?" "Not directly. HR won't give you the headers. That's confidential." He paused, looking at me. "But if she's as arrogant as you say, she probably didn't use a sophisticated setup. She probably used her home Wi-Fi." So, Mark leaned in, "we don't need to hack Vanguard. We need to see what digital trails she left. Does she share devices? Do you have access to any of her accounts?" I thought about it. She uses my Netflix and my Amazon Prime. Mark grinned. "That's a start, but we need more. We need her IP address history." And he hesitated. "If we're going to prove this legally, you need a confession or hard proof. Metadata isn't always enough for a lawsuit. You need to trap her." We spent the next 3 hours formulating a plan. It was risky. It required me to play the part Claire wanted me to play, the defeated, broken sister. I had to feed her ego until she got careless. Step 1 was the bait. I went home and drafted a fake email. I created a dummy account that looked like it belonged to a recruitment agency. The email stated that despite the issues, at Vanguard, a smaller, desperate firm was interested in interviewing me for a low-level, probationary role. I waited 2 days, letting the silence build. Then, I went back to my mother's house. I wore no makeup, I wore sweatpants. I looked exactly how they wanted to see me. "I found something," I told them over coffee, staring at the floor. "It's barely minimum wage data entry, but they said they might overlook the record if I accept a probationary period." Claire's eyes lit up. "Oh, Abby, that sounds appropriate. You have to start somewhere, right? Rebuild trust." "I just don't know if I can take it," I whimpered. "It's so humiliating." "Humility is good for the soul," Claire said, placing a hand on my arm. Her touch felt like ice. "You should take it. Show everyone you're not too proud to work." "I guess," I sighed. I sent them my updated references. The trap was set. The recruiter email address was monitored by Mark. If Claire sent a tip to that address, we would have her IP, her device ID, and the timestamp. We would have her red-handed. But I needed more than just an IP address. I needed to know how she got the specific HR contacts at Vanguard. That afternoon, while Claire was pontificating about my fresh start, I asked to use her laptop to check the bus schedule since I was selling my car. She handed it over without hesitation. Her arrogance was her blind spot. She thought I was too stupid, too broken to be a threat. I opened the browser. Incognito mode was closed, but she hadn't cleared her cache. I didn't search for Vanguard. I searched for LinkedIn. She was logged in, not as herself but under a fake profile, concerned corporate citizen. My heart hammered against my ribs. I clicked on Sent Messages. There it was, dozens of messages, not just to Vanguard. She had messaged recruiters at 3 other firms I had interviewed with. She had been poisoning the well for months. To Vanguard HR, I believe you should look into Abigail's time at previous company. There were rumors of missing petty cash that were swept under the rug. To Vanguard Legal, attached are photos of Abigail using illegal substances at a party. The photos were from a college Halloween party 10 years ago where I was holding a prop cigarette, context completely stripped. I took screenshots. I emailed them to myself. I deleted the sent items from her trash. I handed the laptop back. Thanks, Claire, I found a route. Good for you, she beamed. See, things are looking up already. I walked out of that house with my blood boiling so hot I thought I might spontaneously combust. She hadn't just sabotaged one job. She was systematically hunting down my entire career, actively patrolling LinkedIn to find anyone I connected with. She wasn't teaching me a lesson. She was trying to destroy my life. The bait worked faster than we expected. 12 hours later, Mark called me. Got her. An email came into the dummy recruitment account. Subject, candidate warning. Sent from an IP address in the suburbs. Same device ID as the one that logs into your Netflix. We had her. Now came the hard part. Confronting her wasn't enough. If I just yelled at her, she'd would deny it. She would gaslight me. She would tell our mother I was crazy, paranoid, attacking her out of jealousy. I needed to break her credibility. I needed to expose her in a way that she couldn't spin. I called a family meeting. I told them it was urgent, that I had news about the investigation. We gathered in my mother's living room. Claire, Jaden, and Margaret. I stood by the fireplace, my hands clasped behind my back. Did you get the data entry job? Claire asked, popping a grape into her mouth. No, I said calmly. The recruiter received an anonymous email claiming I was a theft risk. They rescinded the interview. Oh my God, Margaret gasped. Who is doing this to you? That's just terrible, Claire shook her head, though I saw the twitch of a smile at the corner of her mouth. Maybe you have a stalker, Abby. You attract so much negative attention with your lifestyle. I thought so too, I said, so I hired a forensic cybersecurity analyst. The room went dead silent. Claire stopped chewing. What? Jaden asked. A digital investigator. It was expensive, but worth it. We traced the emails. I pulled a folder out of my bag. I didn't open it yet, I just held it. Traced them? Claire's voice was suddenly higher, tighter. I thought those things were anonymous. Nothing is anonymous, Claire, I said, locking eyes with her. Every email has a header. Every device has a fingerprint. We traced the IP address. It came from a residential connection. Specifically from a house on Elm Street. Claire's address. That's impossible, Claire stammered. Technology makes mistakes. We also matched the device ID, I continued, stepping closer. The emails to Vanguard, the emails to the recruiters, and the email to the fake job I told you about yesterday. They all came from the same MacBook, your MacBook. Margaret looked from me to Claire, confused. Claire, what is she talking about? She's lying. Claire shot up from the sofa, her face flushing a deep, angry red. She's making this up. She's jealous of my life, Mom. She's always been jealous that I have a family and she has nothing but a lonely apartment. I have the logs, Claire, I said, slamming the folder onto the coffee table. I have the screenshots from your LinkedIn account. Concerned corporate citizen? Really? You hacked me, Claire shrieked. You invaded my privacy. Mom, she hacked my computer. You sent emails claiming I was a drug addict and a thief. I shouted back, my voice finally breaking the calm facade. You cost me a $200,000 job. You destroyed my reputation. I did it for you, Claire screamed, the mask finally slipping completely. Her face was twisted, ugly with years of repressed envy. You were getting out of control. You think you're better than us. Throwing your money around, buying mom things I can't afford, acting like you're the savior of this family. You needed to be humbled. You needed to see that you're nothing without that money. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Margaret looked at Claire, horror dawning on her face. Claire, you did this. You lost her the job. I was saving her soul, Claire spat, pacing the room. She was becoming a monster, an arrogant, selfish monster. I just wanted her to stay, grounded, to stay with us. By ruining me? I asked, my voice trembling with rage. You didn't want me grounded. You wanted me on my knees. And look at you, Claire gestured wildly. You're fine, you have savings, you'll find something else. But maybe now you'll appreciate family more. Maybe now you'll stop rubbing our noses in your success. Jaden stood up, looking pale. Claire, did you really send those emails? That's illegal, honey. Oh, shut up, Jaden, Claire snapped at him. Whose side are you on? She's fine, she's resilient, right? That's what everyone always says. Abigail is so strong. Well, let's see how strong she is now. She turned to me, her eyes manic. Go ahead, show Mom your little papers. It doesn't change anything. I'm her daughter. She knows my heart. I was trying to help. It was delusional. It was narcissistic. It was terrifying. I'm not just showing Mom, I said coldly. I'm showing a lawyer. Claire laughed, a harsh, barking sound. You wouldn't dare. You wouldn't sue your own sister. Mom won't let you. It would tear the family apart. She looked at Margaret confidently. Tell her, Mom. Tell her to stop this nonsense. Margaret looked at the floor. She was wringing her hands, tears streaming down her face. Abigail, surely we can handle this internally. We don't need lawyers. Claire made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but she's your sister. I looked at my mother, the enabler, the peacekeeper who would sacrifice my well-being to keep Claire comfortable. She didn't make a mistake, Mom, I said, picking up the folder. She committed a crime, and she's not sorry. Look at her, she thinks she's right. I walked toward the door. If you walk out that door, Claire hissed, you're dead to us. You choose money over family, and you'll be alone forever. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. I'd rather be alone, I said, than be with people who want to see me fail. I walked out, but I knew this wasn't over. Claire was cornered, and cornered animals bite. The next week was a war of attrition. Claire didn't back down. She doubled down. She started a whisper campaign in our extended family and church community. She told aunts and cousins that I had suffered a nervous breakdown, that I was delusional, that I had invented a conspiracy theory to explain my own professional failure. My phone blew up with messages from relatives. Praying for you, honey. Don't push your sister away. She loves you. She was rewriting the narrative faster than I could fight it. But while she was fighting a PR war, I was fighting a legal one. I hired an employment lawyer, a shark named Mr. Henderson. We didn't just target Claire, we targeted Vanguard. We sent them a demand letter, attaching the forensic proof that their credible evidence was a malicious fabrication from a known relative. We demanded a retraction of the rescinded offer, or we would sue for wrongful termination and negligence in their vetting process. Simultaneously, we prepared a defamation suit against Claire. But Claire had one more card to play. 2 days later, Child Protective Services knocked on my door. I stared at the caseworker, stunned. I don't have children, I said. We received a report that you are running an unlicensed daycare in this apartment and that drugs are present. The woman said, checking her clipboard. It was insane. It was easily disprovable. But the humiliation of having a government official search my apartment, opening my drawers, checking my pantry, was searing. When she left, apologizing for the waste of time, I sat on my couch and shook. This wasn't just about a job anymore. Claire was trying to get me arrested. She was trying to swat me. I called Mark. She called CPS on me. She's escalating. She's panicking, Mark said. She knows you have the proof. She's trying to destroy your credibility before you can use it. We need to end this. Now. How? We have the logs, we have the screenshots, but to really nail her, we need to hit her where it hurts, her reputation. Mark had been digging deeper into Claire's digital life. He found something I had missed. Claire's community volunteer work. She was the treasurer for the local charity league. I looked into the charity's public filings, Mark said, and then I cross-referenced them with some of Claire's Venmo activity. It's sloppy, Abby. She's been siphoning off petty cash for years. Small amounts. $50 here, $100 there. Transferring it to her personal account under labels like reimbursement. My jaw dropped. The woman who accused me of embezzlement was stealing from the church fund. She's been projecting, I whispered. Everything she accused me of, she was doing herself. Exactly, Mark said. And guess what? The Charity League has their annual gala this Friday. Claire is being honored as Volunteer of the Year. A cold calm settled over me. Friday, I said. Okay. I called Mr. Henderson. Draft the defamation lawsuit, have it served, but not to her house. Where do you want it served? He asked. I'll let you know, I said. I have a better location in mind. I wasn't going to hide anymore. I wasn't going to play the victim. Claire wanted a show. She wanted to talk about values and integrity in front of an audience. I was going to give her exactly what she wanted. The annual Charity League Gala was held in the grand ballroom of the Omni Hotel. It was the kind of event where the city's old money mingled with aspiring social climbers, everyone drinking overpriced champagne and patting themselves on the back for their generosity. I wasn't invited. In fact, I had been explicitly removed from the guest list by the treasurer, my sister. But I didn't need an invitation. I had bought a ticket 3 months ago under my own name, long before the sabotage began. And I had a process server named Mr. Gorski waiting in the lobby. I arrived 20 minutes late. I wore the navy suit I was supposed to wear on my first day at Vanguard. It felt like armor. As I walked into the ballroom, the air conditioning hit my face, cooling the sweat that had gathered at my hairline. My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a physical reminder of the risk I was taking. The room was dim, illuminated by crystal chandeliers and purple uplighting. Hundreds of people sat at round tables, watching the stage. And there she was. Claire stood at the podium, bathed in a spotlight. She was wearing a shimmering gold gown, looking every bit the angel she pretended to be. She was holding a Krista. L. Plaque, Volunteer of the Year. I moved silently through the shadows at the back of the room, stopping near the tech booth. I needed to hear this. And really, this award isn't about me, Claire was saying, her voice thick with practiced emotion. It's about the values we hold dear: integrity, honesty, family. She paused for effect, looking down at our mother and Jaden, who were beaming at the front table. It's been a hard year for my family. As many of you know, my younger sister has been struggling with significant personal demons. Addiction and mental instability are terrible things. A murmur of sympathy rippled through the crowd. My blood ran cold. She was doing it. She was using the destruction of my reputation as a prop for her acceptance speech. It has taught me, Claire continued, wiping a fake tear, that no matter how successful someone seems on the outside, if they lack humility and moral character, they have nothing. I pray for her every day. I pray she finds her way back to the light. The applause started, polite, pitying applause. I stepped out of the shadows. I walked down the center aisle. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I walked with the steady, rhythmic click of my heels on the parquet floor. The applause faltered. Heads turned, people whispered, "Is that her, the troubled sister?" Claire saw me. Her smile froze. Her grip on the podium tightened until her knuckles were white. "Abigail," she said into the microphone, her voice echoing nervously. "Abigail, honey, this isn't the place. We can talk outside." I didn't stop until I was standing right in front of the stage, looking up at her. The room was deadly silent. "You're right, Claire," I said. My voice wasn't amplified, but in the silence it carried. "This is about integrity and honesty." "Security," Claire hissed, looking towards the wings. "Please, someone help her. She's having an episode." 2 security guards started moving towards me from the side walls. I turned to the table directly in front of me, the board of directors table. I locked eyes with Mrs. Gable, the president of the league, a formidable woman in her 70s with a zero-tolerance policy for nonsense. "Mrs. Gable," I said, pulling a thick envelope from my bag. "Before you remove me, you might want to see where the petty cash fund has been going for the last 3 years." Claire shrieked. It wasn't a word, it was a primal sound of panic. "Don't listen to her. She's crazy. She's high right now." Mrs. Gable frowned, her hand extending automatically to take the envelope. "That envelope," I said, raising my voice so the surrounding tables could hear, "contains forensic bank records linking the charity league's accounts directly to my sister's personal Venmo and PayPal. She's been siphoning donations to pay for her car, her vacations, and her wine club membership. Total misappropriation exceeds $15,000. The gasp that went through the room sucked the oxygen out of the air. "Liar," Claire screamed into the microphone, the feedback whining. "You jealous, pathetic liar." "I also have the logs," I continued, ignoring Claire and addressing the room, proving that she used the same computer to fabricate criminal records and send them to my employer, costing me my career. She calls it teaching me humility. The law calls it defamation and fraud. Jaden stood up, knocking his chair over. "Abby, stop. What are you doing?" "I'm finishing the project, Jaden," I said coldly. I nodded to the back of the room. The double doors swung open. Mr. Gorski, a large man in a cheap suit, walked down the aisle. He didn't look at the crowd. He looked at the woman in the gold dress who was now trembling visibly on stage. He walked up the stairs, crossed the stage, and extended a stack of papers to Claire. "Claire Miller," he boomed. She shrank back, her hands up as if to ward off a blow. "No, no, go away." "You are served," he said, dropping the papers at her feet when she refused to take them. "Lawsuit for defamation of character, tortious interference, and damages totaling $2 million. Claire looked at the papers, then at the silent, horrified crowd. The golden child facade didn't just crack, it shattered. She lunged for the microphone. "She's lying, my sister is a criminal, she's the one who stole. Mom, tell them." She looked frantically at the front table. Margaret was sitting there, her face ashen, staring at the envelope Mrs. Gable was now reading with a look of pure fury. Margaret looked up at Claire, her perfect, pious daughter, and then she looked at me. For the first time in my life, my mother didn't rush to save her. She just put her head in her hands and wept. "The police have been notified regarding the embezzlement," I said, my voice cutting through Claire's hysterics. "They're waiting in the lobby." I turned around. I didn't look back at the stage. I didn't look at the hundreds of people staring at me. Slack jaws. I walked back up the aisle, the sound of my heels the only consistent rhythm in a room descending into chaos. Behind me, I heard the feedback whine again, followed by the heavy thud of the microphone being dropped. And then, finally, the sound of Mrs. Gable's voice, cold and sharp as a guillotine blade. "Claire, step down now." The fallout was swift, brutal, and public. Because the gala was a high-profile event, the story hit the local news cycle by the next morning. Charity treasurer accused of embezzlement at gala meltdown. The video of Claire screaming, "She's high right now," while I stood calmly in my suit, went viral locally. It wasn't the kind of fame she had always craved, but it was certainly the attention she deserved. 3 days later, I sat in a conference room at Vanguard Logistics. Across from me sat David, the hiring manager, and the VP of HR. The mood was somber. On the table between us lay the letter from Mr. Henderson and the retracted police report regarding the drug den, which was obviously false. Abigail, the VP began, looking uncomfortable. We have completed our internal review. It appears our vetting process was compromised by a malicious third party. We acted prematurely. You fired me without a conversation, I said, keeping my voice neutral. You took the word of an anonymous email over my background check. We know, David said, looking genuinely ashamed. And we are incredibly sorry. We want to reinstate the offer. Immediate start. And to compensate you for the distress, we are increasing the signing bonus by 20%. I looked at the contract they slid across the table. It was everything I had worked for. The salary, the title, the validation. But I didn't sign it immediately. I have one condition, I said. Name it, the VP said. I want a written statement from Vanguard, on company letterhead, confirming that the allegations against me were false and that my record is clean. I need my reputation restored in writing. Done, the VP said. I signed the paper. When I walked out of that building, the air smelled sweeter. I drove to my new apartment, the one I hadn't lost after all. I spent the afternoon unpacking, putting my books on the shelves, hanging my clothes. Every object I placed felt like a victory. That evening, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole. It was Margaret. I debated not opening it. I debated leaving her out there, but I opened it. She looked 10 years older. Her eyes were red and swollen. She held a casserole dish, the universal language of a mother who knows she screwed up but doesn't know how to say the words. Can I come in? She asked, her voice small. I stepped aside. She walked in, looking around the apartment, the arrogant apartment, the high-rise. It's beautiful, Abby, she whispered. Thank you. She set the casserole on the counter and then turned to me. She tried to smile, but her lip quivered and she broke down. I didn't know, she sobbed. I swear, Abby, I didn't know she was capable of that. The money, the lies. She told me you were sick. She told me she was trying to help you. But you believed her, I said, staying on the other side of the island. You always believe her. You assumed I was the broken one because I didn't fit your mold. I know, she wept. I was wrong. I enabled her. I see that now. Jaden left her. He took the kids to his parents' house. He said he couldn't have them around her. She's in a bad place, Abby. She's in jail, Mom, I corrected gently. She was denied bail because she's a flight risk. She has a hearing on Tuesday. I know, Margaret sniffled. She called me. She wants you to drop the lawsuit. She says if you drop it, the DA might go easier on the embezzlement charge. I looked at my mother. This was the test. And what did you tell her? I asked. Margaret took a deep breath. She wiped her eyes with a tissue she pulled from her sleeve. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of actual strength. I told her, Margaret said, her voice trembling but firm, that she needs to learn humility. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I walked around the island and hugged my mother. She clung to me, desperate and sorry, and we stood there in the quiet of my new kitchen. It wasn't a perfect ending. My sister was facing felony charges. My family was fractured. The golden child was tarnished beyond repair. But as I looked out the window at the city skyline, watching the lights flicker on one by one, I felt a profound sense of peace. Claire had wanted to teach me a lesson, and she had. She taught me that my success wasn't something to be ashamed of. She taught me that family isn't a free pass for abuse. And most of all, she taught me that the truth, no matter how much you try to bury it under lies and fake piety, always finds a way to the surface. I picked up M. Why phone? I had an orientation to prepare for.